is the pre-bid meeting, second pre-bid meeting for RFP number 184167 for consultation services for ARPA grant compliance. My name is Jamila Watkins. I'm from the Office of Contracting and Procurement with the City of Detroit. And does anyone else on the call, on the team, want to introduce themselves for the recording and for everyone that's coming in?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Elliott. I am the Deputy CFO over Development and Grants for the City of Detroit.
Good morning, everyone. Lindsay Wallace. I'm the Director of ARPA Implementation.
Good morning. I'm Alex Weatherup. I'm the Assistant Director of Compliance over ARPA.
Okay, thank
Good
you
morning.
all.
I'm Tony. I'm the Deputy Chief Procurement Officer for the Office of Contractor Procurement.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, everyone. All right, so just going to get started here. So this is our second pre-proposal conference. We had one, I want to say in November, but since then, everyone on the call should know that the scope has been revised as well as the price sheet. And so we wanted to come back and allow potential bidders to have the opportunity to ask any questions, to get updates on the new revised scope and price sheet. We have a slightly different team as well. So we're doing this today for your convenience, and thank you again for coming on. I know this is a busy time for everyone. All right, so now with the second pre-proposal conference, we also have a second date now, a new date for questions to be due. And as I stated, I just had a little bit of an emergency, so I don't have everything in front of me. Lindsay or Megan, do you happen to know the new date for questions off the top of your head? I know it's January. I want to say maybe the 3rd. Does that sound correct?
That sounds right. I don't have the journal in front of me that I wrote that on originally, so
Yeah, that's what's on the new RFP, January 3rd by 2 Eastern. Yeah.
Thank you,
Yes.
Lindsay Jackson. I appreciate it. So yeah, that's the new date for questions. Remember that those questions have to be submitted through the supplier portal in Oracle by 2 p.m., okay? And then the new due date for proposals is the 9th of January. I'm going to ask you again to verify that, Lindsay Jackson. No, Vanessa Brown is shaking her head.
17.
It's the 17th. Listen, thank you for your help. I appreciate it. Okay, so the 17th is
by 3 Eastern.
Thank you very much. By 3 p.m. Eastern. And I have to say, please make sure your supplier portal is set to Eastern Standard Time, because that can be an issue. If your portal is not set right, you may have a discrepancy, and I don't want you to get rejected because of that, okay? So make sure those proposals are submitted. So to go over the criteria, again, I'm going to go over that. The evaluation criteria are still found on page 7, I believe, of the RFP, and those are the same. So your technical approach, staff qualifications, demonstrated experience, and the cost of your proposal. They're all rated at 20, 30, 30, and 20 points respectively for a total of 100. So that's that. Then let's go talk about your required content, which is on that should still be on page 10 of your proposal document. Your letter of transmittal has to be submitted with your proposal. It must include a statement that your proposal is good for 120 days. Attachment A is your questionnaire. Attachment B is your introduction and your solution and approach. Attachment C is pricing. The team is going to go over that for you. Attachment D are required forms, affidavits, and documents. Please note that some of those do require notarization. And then attachment E is the model professional services contract. It's very important that you go over this, because this is an example of the type of contract that you will be signing with the City of Detroit. It's also very important because it does include the required insurances that you must have in order to be awarded a contract. So please look over that information very carefully. And please note that we do require a proof of insurance certificate with your proposal. That just shortens the process. If you are awarded, that's one less thing we have to ask from you, okay? So at this time, that's all my portion, unless anyone has, Tony, do you have anything to add to that? Thank you very much. Tony's my boss, so I have to defer to her, and I'm glad she's on today. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Megan, Lindsay, and Alex. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Jamila. Hi, everyone. Okay, so I wasn't on the last pre-bid meeting, but I'm so glad that this RFP is out on the streets, and thank you to the OCP team for making this happen. One of the things when I returned back from leave that we had talked about was that in the initial scope, what we wanted to do was offer the ability for teams to bid on a portion of the scope or all of the scope. But looking at the way that it was written previously, it wasn't clear for vendors how you guys should do a partial bid, right? So there, based on the way that it was kind of all one list, it wasn't clear how you could submit that and be successful. So we pulled it back. We divided it into two partitions, which Tony has made me aware that I'm extremely old school for calling them partitions. But basically just two categories of thought, right? So the financial services component and the compliance component. We are accepting bids for either one of those, or if you want to put together a proposal that includes both. But that's the main difference. You'll see a lot of the same component parts. We did add some to both just to make sure that we were comprehensive, but the core nuts and bolts of the original RFP are still there. It's just the way that we divided them so that you understand what the kinds of teams are that we're looking for. Lindsay or Alex, anything else that I'm missing there that you'd like to add?
Megan, I just want to add that the RFP does indicate this, but just be mindful that we are asking you to consider a ramp down period with the pricing. And so just be cognizant of that. And then that while we don't require you to be in person the entire time, be mindful of that as well, because we would need to meet and make sure that we're having some meetings in person.
There's one other component that's not that may be kind of subtly inserted there too, which is that we're asking for support from both of these category approaches for all of ARPA. So not necessarily just the funds that are city SLFRF, but as we approach that ramp down period, you know, we've already been successful in getting funds from the state and county that are also ARPA, as well as some others. So we want to have an approach that's comprehensive of those sources as well. So I think with that, again, I know that there was already a pre-bid conference that I missed out on, but we're just here to answer more questions or things that you maybe already submitted as formal questions and want to talk through in the second pre-bid. So I'll push it back to Jamila and Tony.
Okay, yeah, I have a new laptop and I think it's something wrong with my camera. So at this point, I'm going to open it up to questions, like Megan said, because we did get some questions submitted through the portal for the first original questions due date. Whoever submitted those, you can either revise your questions based on the new scope and resubmit them, or if you want to ask on this call, you can go ahead and do that. If anyone new wants to ask questions, please do that at this time.
So one
can
thing,
just-
Jamila,
okay. Yes.
do you have the list of questions that were already submitted? Maybe we could
I could pull
hear
some.
those and
Yeah. I can
have,
pull some.
yeah.
If that's a good idea. All right, let me do that now. And in the meantime, if anyone has questions that's live on the call, you can go ahead and raise your hand. Tony, can you address the people as I'm looking for the submitted questions? Thank you.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Kelly Russell.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm Kelly Russell with Haggerty Consulting, and I just had a question for clarity on your Part 1 category, where you list out calculate and review revenue. replacement allocation. So I just had a question for clarity. Is this a matter of you looking for a reassessment of your calculations that were already done, or are you looking for someone to begin, from beginning to end and calculate that for you?
So that's a great question. We're looking for someone to start where we've left off and do a final calculation. I believe there's one more that can be done through the life cycle of ARPA, and so it would only be for that final calculation.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you for that
So,
clarification.
yeah, so building off of the work that's been done. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so Megan and team, I do have a question I just pulled. I have one so far. I'm going to paste it in the chat. How does that sound? Okay.
Right.
So you see it's 7 parts to that question.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Long question.
And if it's, if you want to just answer them, send the answers later through roll call, that's fine. But whatever you can answer now, if you want to do that.
Sure. So the first question is, has the city conducted or used a third party to conduct the scope of services in the past? We've used a number of different consultants for different grants management processes, particularly the compliance portion, but also the financial services portion of this scope. We're a large city, and just in ODG alone, we manage over $2 billion. So we've absolutely used other third parties for this type of work. How many subrecipients does the city have for ARPA? That's a great question. Lindsay or Alex, do we know off the top of our head how many we have?
So we do have quite a few subrecipients that have multiple agreements with the city. I think we have roughly anywhere between 11 and 15 subrecipients, but I do want to emphasize that it's not uncommon to have one subrecipient have 13 different agreements. There's quite a lot of money that has been funneled throughout the city for this work. And unfortunately, there's only so many subrecipients and organizations that can do the work.
Yeah, so there's the ecosystem is somewhat smaller, so there's a big reliance on a small set of actors, I'd say. So how many financial submissions do you estimate for review each month? That would be a great question for Joe.
So
Megan,
again,
do you think it's go ahead.
I was just gonna say, whatever you can't answer now, we can just save it and send it,
Yeah, I think we should do that to get the most comprehensive answer.
Yeah.
Our ODFS partners are not overseeing the bid process, but they'll be a really critical part of this work, as you can imagine, especially that first partition. So I think number 3 and 4 we can look up in ODG, but I don't know off the top of my head. Through the rest of these. As for number 6, the question was, would you expect this work to be performed virtually or on site? If on site, what % of the time would you expect? I would expect that most of this work can be performed virtually. The only time that we would need in-person support is if we're having a challenge with a subrecipient partner, and we need the team to really go in and sit with them and kind of get their invoices in order, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. So there is a component of this that would be best supported by in-person, but is not the kind of typical workflow and is more just preventative to make sure that we don't have challenges with the pace of invoicing and review. Let's see. And then the last question, it looks like, is for the OCP team.
Yeah, and I just typed into the chat because that's kind of a technical navigation question on where to upload documents. So for those of you who are not familiar with the portal, I encourage you to reach out to our e-procurement team. And I have just put their email address in the chat. It's procurementinthecloud@detroitmi.gov. And they will help you through that process, getting registered, navigating, uploading, all of that. Okay, so I did pull some additional questions here. There's one I'm going to answer I'm going to answer this one because this is another OCP. I'm still gonna type it here. So they're asking regarding the required proposal content and format. Should respondents plan to upload 6 individual files, and for instance, or for example, letter transmittal plus completed sign attachments, blah, blah, blah. So you can do that as one PDF. You can do it as one PDF or you can do it as individual files. Those required documents, it's up to you. And just know that typically a lot of people do a packet, but there are lots of people who do individual files. So whatever is most convenient for you. What's most important to us is that the documents are completed properly, that the ones that require notarization have notarization, but that they are completed properly and fully. That is the most important thing. However you choose to upload it, however many files, no problem with that. Okay, I've got a live question here from John Hageman, and you can go ahead and unmute yourself, or Hageman, I'm not sure, but John, go ahead with your question, please.
Great, thank you. Good morning, John Hageman, Haggerty Consulting. I have a clarification question on the workstream breakdown as part of the pricing document. I noticed the instructions include building a table to reflect the work streams as defined in your approach. My question is, are those vendor-defined work streams, or are those work streams associated with the A, B, C, D, et cetera element under each of the partitions in the scope of work?
The price sheet should reflect your approach. So it might be different according to how you're approaching each of those, so long as you're comprehensive of all of the different pieces of the scope.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so let me see if I have any other live. Oh, George Harris has a live question. Go ahead, please, Mr. Harris, unmute yourself.
Yes, George Harris from Calyptus Consulting. I'm wanting to ask you about the pricing section, just like the gentleman just noted. This is that as needed procurement, right? You're going to ask for help in those various tasks. So you would give us an assignment, we'd get a budget, we would do it, then we go to the next assignment. Is that how it's going to work? Hello?
Yes, sorry, I was just unmuting myself. So I'm trying to think about how you would be thinking through this in terms of your submission,
Right.
because it would be as needed, so long as it was as comprehensive of the scope, but at the same time, we're looking for support across the entirety of the portfolio that we have. Does that make sense?
No, to be honest with you, because how can you evaluate cost proposals across 20 different vendors when we take different approaches? Some folks might say, oh, I only need 20 hours for that fast. Another one might say 100. I think it's better off looking at just labor rates. I'm a procurement guy. I think that's a better way to approach that, because otherwise you would definitely compare apples with oranges. Unless you were to say, these are those requirements that we asked you to do 100%, the financial reporting, the subrecipient monitoring. I think we could put a budget. You gave us some level of effort on the subrecipients where you said 11 to 13, et cetera. So I think we could scope out. The other ones, it'd be hard to come up with an estimate and then to compare. I think it'd be difficult. So maybe the suggestion is either compare hourly rates, which can be done, or have, these partitions are 100% needed, and then these are the other ones that we need on an as-needed basis. Then we could do a, an hourly rate for those. That would be my suggestion. Thank you.
Appreciate that suggestion. Jamila or anyone on the team, I don't know. I mean, I think we certainly wrote the scopes of services. That's why we kind of went back and broke them out, because we felt like it was only fair to do the full kind of scope of services of what we need according to those two categories. And we do request rates based on team compilation, but I think
I can
I don't
pull
know.
up
I'll have to
the,
think more about that.
you want me to pull up the price sheet and share it?
Sure.
Okay, so I did pull it up while he was talking. Let me share my screen. And this may be something that we might want to discuss offline. Share my screen. Okay. Are you able to see it?
Yep, we've got it.
Okay. And you see the spreadsheet?
Yeah, so those
Okay.
those rate sheets are, that's not those are just a template. So we're not suggesting those 3 analysts. I think that should be clear.
Right, yeah.
But
And then this is the worksheet breakdown, work stream breakdown,
mhm.
if that helps.
Yeah, so we'll think about that comment and see if we can
Yeah.
reflect that in what we're asking you to provide here.
Just out of curiosity, Megan, would you like to see hands of anyone else on the call who kind of shared the opinion of Mr. Harris?
Sure, that'd be great. Thanks.
So if anyone else on the call had an objection to the way the price sheet was structured, just raise your hand, just do a hand raise, and we can just take a quick look here. Okay. I want to share my screen again. So far I'm just seeing a couple. Ms. Batts, did you have a question or comment?
Yes, just was I was looking at the RFP to just double check and see if there an anticipated timeline of award, and looking at the pricing sheet, it looks like it would be a couple of years. Is that the anticipation that this contract will be about 2 years, or just if anybody can offer any insight on the timeline of award and the potential duration of the contract?
For award timeline, I think we'd say early spring, just to ensure the council processes as part of that timeline, and then getting the right contract in place. As far as the duration of services, this would be able to run through December 2026. But again, as Lindsay mentioned, with an anticipated ramp down period, because we're requiring our subrecipients and vendors to spend down earlier than the kind of final timeline that we have in ARPA. So we're going to be using ARPA for the payment of the contract, so it can't go beyond that period anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let me pull up another question from this document. Okay, I'm gonna paste this in here. So Megan, this question is related to attachment A. I'm going to share that. That's the attachment that looks for experience. Let me pull that up and share my screen again. Okay, so this is attachment A, the respondent questionnaire. So it's asking for the single point of contact, whoever's identified as the person, that we're gonna communicate with, whoever partner and manager is, and then your background information. So the question that I just put into the chat is saying, please confirm that the city is just looking for examples of additional relevant experience beyond the 3 reference projects submitted in response to attachment A, part 1-3, prior experience responded. So let me go down to that part. Oh, this one, okay. 3 relevant experiences from the last 5 years supporting your ability to successfully manage a contract of similar size. Look at this question. Just looking for additional beyond the 3. Yeah, that's what I would say. Would you say the same thing, Megan? For this question here?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So hopefully that's that. Now I have several. Let's see here. Okay, this one. I'm just gonna read this one off of the page. How many invoices are being reviewed every month? Do you have an average?
I'll have to ask our ODFS team for that response. It's similar to, I think, number 3 from the original list of questions. So we'll
Okay.
get that out as part of the Q&A.
Okay.
Just knowing that our average right now is anticipated to increase heavily, just
Okay.
given the volume of work.
Okay. Now
And we
here's
can write that in
another.
the response too.
Okay. Here's one more I'm gonna paste here. And then, of course, like I said, if there are anyone else with live questions, go ahead and raise your hand. I'm just gonna paste all of these, and then you can answer whichever ones you have answered.
Alex, do you or Lindsay want to take the obligation and expenditure question? It's in the chat.
So obligation expenditure information, centrally available, contractor need to individually coordinate portfolio managers. So we centralize the report out of obligation and spend on our website. So it's something our team manages with ODFS and our data team to put those numbers together. For this consultant contract, we'll want someone to be there kind of in conjunction for our quarterly reports and annual to make sure that we are ticking in time each of the contracts and agreements that we get as we're tabulating up our obligation. I don't feel like I'm answering that question fully, but I'll stop there and please let me know if there's follow-up questions.
So yeah,
loss. I was wondering if you could help me fill in the blanks. How do I do this?
I'm
Maybe
sorry.
I'm
I'm
gonna
sorry,
hide
who's-
these
hello?
so that it's not like
This
5
is Joe
minutes.
Robinson. I was just pulled
And I know
into
you submitted
this meeting and I'm
Oh.
actually in it.
Hey,
with the
Joe.
auditor. Hey.
Okay, the next question was from a live question, Elena Augustine.
So what is this infrastructure?
Sorry, somebody else talking. I just wanted to confirm that the attachments A and B and required form file didn't also change. They look the same to me, but I just wanted to confirm that.
Yeah, good question. No, those did not change. They're the same. So thank you for that. That's no problem. Vanessa Brower.
Hi, Vanessa Brower from Widow Bryant's. Just wanted to get some clarification. The question submittals due the first week of January, but for all of the questions that you already have, will you be sending out rolling responses, or do we have to wait until the response date to get the answers to some of these questions? It'd be helpful to have this information on a rolling basis to compile and create our responses accordingly.
That's typically not how we do things, but I can definitely, we'll consult and see what is, we'll get a consensus from the team. We typically kind of compile all the questions together and send them all out at once. And then we give you that additional time in order to, do your proposals. I think we gave you another 2 weeks. The answers should be due out that week of the 3rd, a couple of days after they're submitted, and then they're not due until the 17th. So we kind of try to give you enough time to look at the answers. But if the team feels that we want to do rolling responses, we'll do rolling responses. I'll send an
Okay, great.
update out to everyone, okay?
Thank you.
You're
I think
welcome.
if we could, before we go to the next question, since Joe joined us,
Oh, I'm sorry.
is she still here?
Oh, she was on a call with an auditor, but I did ask her. She said roughly about 60 to 100 invoices. She said this week is little because, holiday, so she had 6. But as it picks up, she's estimating about 60 to 100 invoices.
Thank you very much. I didn't mean to cut her off, so I apologize for that.
No, that's okay. I just want to make sure that was, because I think that's one of the big questions that folks like Vanessa are alluding to, that they need to build their response.
I'm sorry, Megan. Can I just add to that, Jamila? Megan? So while we have quite a few invoices, as Tony just suggested based on Joe's response, there are oftentimes multiple invoices in one packet. I know on average right now it's about $3.5 to $4 million that we're expending per week. Now, obviously that fluctuates. And I think we really have to get to a point where we're going anywhere between, I would say, $8 and $9 million, $7 to $9 million per week in order to meet our award. And so, as Megan suggested, we're going to have to really ramp up that. And I think next year is really going to be the focus on spending down these obligations.
Thanks, that's important.
Okay, Mr. Harris, you have another question? Go right ahead.
Sorry, I promise it'll be my last one. In the document, it said that you were looking for consultants that have at least 5 years and used the word federal acquisition experience. Are you looking for folks just with federal acquisition experience, or are you looking for folks with grants management experience, with award management, 2 CFR 200 experience? Could you look at that? It said 5 years of federal acquisition. I just want to make sure that in submitting the proposals, we hit what you're looking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Yeah, I don't know the specific language. I'll look at that and make sure we address it in the Q&A, but I would say just in terms of what we need, we do need 2 CFR experience and federal grants management experience generally. So if you're covering that and demonstrating that experience as part of your proposal, that's what we're looking for. If you have specific experience with ARPA as well, I think that that's something that should be highlighted.
Yep, that was the language included, the federal acquisition experience, probably from the previous, submission of the requisition. Okay, so I can pull up some more questions here. So let me go from that were previously submitted. Let me put that in the chat.
Jamila, I see questions in the chat. Were you just waiting for us to start taking through those? Gotcha.
Yes,
sorry.
please. Yes, that's
All
okay.
right, so I see document management platforms does the city currently use? Our primary source of truth is Oracle Fusion. That's where all of our invoices and requisitions are processed through. So anything attached to an invoice requisition proposal gets stored in Oracle. And then we also have a SharePoint, MS365 ecosystem for all projects have a folder, and all folders have the same subfolders where you keep different reporting documents, project documents, what have you.
The second question is, has a risk assessment been completed for all subrecipients? How many subrecipients are low risk, medium risk, and high risk? Megan, are you comfortable with, I don't know the answer off the top of my head. I do think we would need to go back and find out what that number is. I do know that we are currently doing risk assessments for subrecipients. I think that is also part of the task 2, I believe, partition 2. Would be assistance in completing any additional subrecipients and doing a risk assessment. And we're also going back and making sure that if there was not one completed, that we're doing that.
Yep. Thanks, Lindsay. And then for the city processes for subrecipient monitoring and how many city staff are dedicated to this work. So we could share our SOP for how we carry out subrecipient monitoring. I think that'd be the most straightforward thing that would be helpful for folks to develop a strong response. The number of city staff dedicated to this work, let's see. Well, we've just reorganized our team a little bit, so I'm trying to think through how many just for the portfolio of funds that we're talking about here, because we've got a couple folks on our main ODG team as well as our core ARPA team. But predominantly, I'd say the subrecipient monitoring happens with our third-party entities. So that's going to continue to be a major source of reliance that we're looking for bidders to respond to. But we'll get you the exact number. Okay. Additional NOFAs. Yeah, you might have this answer off the top of your head, Alex. Go ahead.
Sure. So how many additional NOFAs are expected to be released and contracts executed in 2024 to obligate all the city's funds? The number of agreements, I'm unsure. We estimate that for subrecipients, at least the NOFAs, in the ballpark of 5 to 10. Most of our large subrecipient programs are in place. We do have a couple programs with beneficiary agreements where there are dozens and dozens of recipients from a kind of a micro grant program. So those will continue to be processed, but we've got an internal flow for that as well. We'll want this new entity to be part of the review, just like our current third party is. But it's more in terms of contracts and dollars. We're about, on our website, we're about 62% obligated, all the funds. And so that's, we're looking at about another, in 2024, about 300 million we're looking to obligate. Most of it's already in our procurement pipeline. But we, if you're looking for a dollar amount and a scale, we'll need compliance review for scopes for 300 million.
I'd say if I could just edit that a little bit,
Please.
I think probably because of where we are with a lot of those in January and February and the timing of when this team would come on, it might be closer to 200.
Spring.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we have the pipeline is full. And so the front end review of those scopes is complete.
Okay, so let's see what this next one is.
Currently responsible for ensuring that contracts. Oh, no. Did I do that one already?
No, yeah. So the next question is, who is currently responsible for ensuring that contracts and subrecipient agreements are compliant with uniform guidance? Is that centrally managed through procurement and or legal, or is that the responsibility on the project and portfolio managers?
So go ahead, Lindsay.
Oh, so I was just going to add that it is a team effort. So we do have a legal department that is responsible for drafting those agreements. And we work closely with OCP, Tony and her team, and Jamila to make sure that that is all packaged correctly. And then, of course, the consultants that we work with, we have them typically look at, or have in the past, look at that information to make sure that reporting is all packaged in there as well.
Yeah, and Office of Development and Grants is kind of the final sign off for compliance purposes. And then looks like there's another question.
Now, this question from Denise Gardner, she says, when responses to questions are posted, will responses for all questions, I'm sorry, I keep getting emails. Will responses for all questions answered be posted, or will those addressed during this meeting not be included? I'm not sure, but this recording is going to be made available to all of you. So I will refer back to this because I have another email with several questions. You guys are going to be very busy answering questions. So I don't want to, torture you like that. I may pull just a couple from that particular email and we'll send those out. We'll send out as many as we can in a PDF after the 3rd. And then again, we're going to discuss that rolling answers question that Vanessa had. But again, it's going to be a good idea to definitely go back and listen to this recording because it will be made available to you. So let me go ahead. I'm going to post just a couple more questions. We generally block out like an hour for these. So I'm going to pick a couple of the questions from this one email. A lot of questions, but I'm not surprised with the nature of this RFP. It makes sense. So let me post this one here. Post that. And I'll pick out another couple from the email. Can you guys see that one?
Yeah, well, the city requires support around Treasury's performance metrics associated with certain SLFRF expenditure categories. We will definitely, we expect support from the consultant to aggregate and kind of put them into, templatize them for us so that we can do an easy input into the Treasury portal. But we have an internal outcomes and data team that has pipelines for data for all of our programs, houses them, and it kind of slices and dices them for us. So we want this, we have that function in-house, but we'll want a coordination effort from the awardee.
Okay, thank you, Alex. So I'm going to post this next one.
Confirm if the city has an existing training model or whether the consultant is expected to create a new training model. Could we expand on, I don't know if this is from someone who's here, but if you could expand on training model. Okay.
No, that was a submitted question.
Okay.
So Lindsay, you could speak to the kind of current training we're doing for subrecipients and that rollout process.
Sure. So we currently are developing a process in which we work on with a consultant. A consultant would work on reviewing invoices, reviewing reporting requirements, and working with that subrecipient to really make sure that they are in a compliant manner. And that will be through a SOP process. So there is no issue with going over our SOPs. I think we are looking on your response as a consultant on what kind of assistance you could provide when it comes to technical assistance. But as far as an existing training model, we can absolutely go ahead and share SOPs and have meetings about that, especially in the beginning, to ramp that up.
All right, here's another. Let me take this one out of here.
How many programs does the city anticipate creating between now and December 2024 obligation deadline? We have, let me pull up my notes here. Most of the programming itself, the program design is complete for the portfolio. We have very little left that really needs to be put pen to paper. But what we do have are projects that are kind of programmed together and then approved piecemeal through our compliance process. So we have the shape of a large bucket of dollars, but then the piecemeal, we're approving different segments of it. So in that case, in that sense, there's probably 20 to 30, individual piecemeal programs that need to be sorted out. But overall, I think we've got, 802 million of the 826, which is fully programmed.
And just to piggyback off of that, so a great example would be our affordable housing.
Yeah.
So we've had our consultant review the overall affordable housing approach and project, but then there is several development projects that are in the pipeline. And so we get that it's very piecemealed. Once we get that, we go ahead and send that to the consultant, our current consultant to review. And so I think that's a large portion of what we anticipate, probably around 20 additional projects, just around affordable housing.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna put that on here. And let me know when you guys, I'm planning on stopping right around the hour mark. And then, of course, I'm just gonna keep saying, if you have live questions, please raise your hand. But these seem like pretty good questions. Maybe you guys are getting the information you need. Here's another.
What other major grants may require project management support? Just the non-SLFRF ARPA for this one, right, Meg?
Yeah, so we just, we wanted to be comprehensive in our approach here. And, we've had examples of grants where the city was able to leverage its own ARPA contributions to get additional ARPA funds from the county and the state that often have, compliance deadlines that are even, in some cases sooner than ours, or in some cases later, depending upon the agreements that we hashed out with those entities. They're not a huge amount, but we also, in this final year of obligation, we could see that change. So we're just looking for additional support there. The two that I can name for everyone that we've been working on here would be our Renew Detroit program. We received a $15 million contract from the state's ARPA, and as well as for the Joe Louis Greenway, we received 60 million from state in ARPA, an additional 40 million that's not ARPA, that's not considered here, and then 20 million from the county. So those are the three grants in particular that we're talking about right now, but we don't know if that's going to change. I see Vanessa, you've got your hand up.
Just curious, there's other programming funding streams through the ARPA legislation, emergency rental assistance, the homeowner assistance fund, capital programs and initiative. Are those also things that you would want the consultant to support as the broad ARPA umbrella?
Appreciate that. I meant to actually address that. So at this time, we're not looking for that support for ERAP, and our broader ODG team is focused on managing all of those funds. So it's really kind of SLFRF that's not city is the main area. So it's kind of within this same portfolio, but slightly different.
Okay, and I have one more submitted question I'll put in the chat. And because I don't want to, because some of the other ones I don't want to I think you might have addressed those, and you may not have. I don't want to do that. Okay, here's this last one.
Percentage of time to saved. Does this question, I'm not, oh, and the person that asked it is not on.
Probably
I was gonna have
not.
to clarify.
Yeah. That's
We might need to ask a question back to them in terms of if they're asking if you put in a bid for both services, what that time percentage looks like.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Yeah. So what I'll do, the questions that were submitted for this last deadline, I think I may reply and see if people want to revise their questions in light of the new revised scope and whatnot. And then once I get finalized questions, I'll send them over to you and we can decide on that rolling answer question or not. But at this time, I think this is probably a good point to start wrapping up. So I'll just give one last opportunity for anyone who's on the call to ask a question. And anyone on your team, Megan or Tony, if you want to add anything before we go.
Well, if no one has a question, I'll just say I appreciate you all taking the time this morning to be here with us and the work that's being put forth to submit these bids. Like Jamila said, it's a tricky time during the holidays to get all of these things coordinated across your teams with everyone in and out. So we really do appreciate that effort, and we will, assemble on our side and get all of your questions answered. So thank you so much.
Anyone else? Okay, Tony, did you have anything?
Oh, I just wanted to make sure I didn't hear the various companies state who is on the call. If we could just either, you sign in what company you're from, or we can go around really quickly. We got 6 minutes, and you can say your name and tell us what company, and it'll be for the recording. That will be perfect.
That's true.
I'll start us off. Lindsay Jackson with Forvis.
You said Forvis?
Forvis, yes.
Forvis.
Forvis. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
To Kendria Batts with Batts Consulting Group.
Okay.
John Hageman with Haggerty Consulting.
Vanessa Brower with O'Brien's.
Can you repeat that, Vanessa? The company you said Witt O'Brien's.
WITTO apostrophe BRIEN apostrophe S. We are plurals.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
It's always the question asked, so it's no problem.
Can we do George next? Because he's driving and I'm getting scared.
Yeah, he's making me nervous too.
George Harris from Calyptus Consulting.
Okay.
Thank you, George.
Thanks. Don't be nervous.
Jack Herring, Eisner Amper Group.
Michelle Tutt, MTT Consulting.
What was that one?
Michelle Tutt, MTT Consulting.
MTT, okay.
Rhonda Walker, AECOM.
Elena Augustine, and I'm also from Forvis.
Hey, this is Jamie Hamilton of Guidehouse, Adam Smitty of Guidehouse, Nikki Gates, Guidehouse, Dwayne Gray, PMA, who will be working with Guidehouse.
Sarah Salcedo with Witt O'Brien's.
Ari Accessory with AECOM.
Denise Gardner with AECOM.
Dina Fox with AECOM.
Natalie Kolick, AECOM. Apologies. Thank you.
And John Foytik with AECOM also.
Robert Watt, GJC.
Rhodalyn Freehas, GJC.
And just since we're recording, it looks like in the chat, Nick Noonfaran, BDO.
Angela Green with Witt O'Brien's.
Anita Baycoat, Eisner Amper.
Mike Wilmer, Witt O'Brien's.
Did we get everybody? Okay. Well, thank you all so much, and happy holidays to everyone. We look forward to seeing all of these lovely proposals.
All right. And the recording should be out probably, if not tomorrow, then Wednesday. So thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day,
Thank
everybody.
y'all.
Thank y'all.
Thanks,
Happy
everyone.
holidays.
Good day.
Thank you.